So this is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time, and it's about ligatures. And there's so much misinformation, so many videos that are spreading misinformation about ligatures. So often the potential of a ligature is just where it fits in the system. How does it suit the mouthpiece? How does it suit the reed? How does it suit the horn? How does it suit your air, your embouchure, your physiology, your morphology, your tongue shape, your voicing, the room you're in, the piece you're playing? And the more distance you have, the more a ligature will affect things. Close up, a lot of ligatures sound the same. Farther away, I think, is where you really start to feel the difference. So I'm just going to play a bunch, add a little bit of commentary. And this is by no means objective. Not only am I a singular player with my own opinions, my own prejudices, my own experience, but this is a vintage R13. This is a 1964. It's like new, and it plays a lot like a modern R13, so that's somewhat common ground for a lot of people. The mouthpiece is an Henri Chedval that was refaced under the guidance of Donald Montanaro, who helped design the Van Doren M series, M13, M14, M15, M13 Lyre. So there's some common ground there, but again, that is not objective. There's no mouthpiece that's objective for trying these. There's no environment. This is just in my home. I've got a million ligatures behind me, as you can see over there. So I'm starting off with one of my least favorite ones ever. This is the BG. It's just flexible. It's just all leather. And I'll just show you a couple things that I look for when I'm testing a ligature. So one of the biggest things that ligatures affect is pitch of articulation. A lot of times I look for a ligature that allows the articulation to go sharp. And that might seem counterintuitive, but for example, this ligature makes the articulation go very neutral in pitch, perhaps even a little bit flat. And actually that one isn't as bad as I thought. It goes a little sharp, but if I'm, it kind of loses some focus on the articulation. And also, this is one of those ligatures, because it's not holding the reed very securely, I can move it very easily side to side. I have to bite to start the sound. So it's not until I push it and add extra jaw pressure that it really goes. Contrast that with something like this. This is one of my favorite ligatures of all time. I get such a sensitive beginning of notes. If I use that same pressure on this ligature, I don't get anything. So I really look for response when I'm testing ligatures, but I'm also looking for hold of the sound. A ligature like this other one that really holds the sound really well. This is a very early patented German silver bonade. Even that high D above D, it holds the sound, and the response is just immediate. All right, so that German silver bonade is really great, and I find that a lot of modern bonade ligatures don't really cut it. Every once in a while you find a good one. This one is okay. This is just a bonade. I get this one, I think, off Muncie Winds. You see how that D, D, D is really kind of dull, almost goes flat? Kind of lethargic. Compare that to the German silver bonade. Every single note has a life to it. It has a buoyancy to it. Whereas this modern bonade does not. That G is terrible. That G is good. That F is terrible. That E is okay. D is terrible. C is okay. So you see, every other note changes, and that's what we call uneven. Can a ligature affect evenness? Absolutely. All right, so I don't really go for modern nickel-plated brass bonades. Here's a really early patented nickel-plated brass bonade. This is also one of my favorites. You hear how much more even the sound is, how much more even the articulation is, but also how much more even the sound is. Also, even though there are more highs in that sound, I actually feel the sound is much darker. There's a lot more bottom. You might not pick this up on this camera, on this mic, but there's a lot more bottom. All right, so since really early patented bonades are hard to find and modern ones generally aren't that great, you can get lucky on eBay, find an old like 1970s, 1960s bonade. Even 1980s bonades or 90s bonades are okay. But you have to tell what it is, and they have different shape of screws, different thickness of metal. But you can also look for old German silver ligatures, like that first bonade, which is still my favorite one. This is a German silver old LeBlanc ligature, and this is just a two-screw design. There's no rails on it. It's just typical stock ligature, but the material is good. There's this halo of sound, of great overtones. The only problem with this design, without those rails to stabilize it, sometimes ligatures can get a little wild in response, but that's okay because generally people don't know how to work on their reeds or get their reeds to be really responsive, or they're playing mouthpieces that are way too resistant, or horns that are way too resistant. So that can actually help make up for it a little bit. Here's another German silver ligature. This one has a very, very lightweight design. That's a little too light for me. But there's still a wonderful, perfect emission of sound. All right, this is an old nickel-plated brass, very heavy brass, heavy metal, good heavy metal, good quality metal, but it's substantial. This is an old Lelandais Fedele ligature. Once again, very even articulation. Really fantastic projection. And it's kind of a toss-up whether I prefer solid German silver or old heavy brass that's nickel-plated. But I definitely, once again, here's that modern bonade to hear how much worse it is. what is that G? That open G is great. That low G is a really small sound. So that's from a lack of craftsmanship. This is a silver-plated buffet ligature. I like these on some mouthpieces. On some mouthpieces, these are my favorite ligatures. Not quite as focused as a bonade, but there's something really great about that. It depends on the reeds you're using. This is an old inverted bonade. These are very popular. This one's, I think, from the 1970s. So certain registers I really like on these. Certain registers, they actually get really bright for me. So if I'm jumping into the throat tones, that's really great. If I jump up into the clarion left hand, that's starting to get uncontrollable for me. And I think that if I was using a more stuffy setup, thicker reed, if I didn't know how to work on reeds, this would help me play reeds that are too thick, and it would make it not quite so big of a deal. But I don't want to do that. This is a texturized Rovner from the 80s, I think, or early 90s. These are great. So there's a great hold in the sound, but unfortunately there's no real focus. This is very much like playing on a string ligature. So if I'm playing to like a microphone up close like I am right now, or if I'm not really playing live, if I'm not playing needing a big sound, this is fine, but I don't necessarily love its articulation. The articulation, again, gets a little too mundane. That D is great. F is a little lethargic. G sharp is great. See, I'm starting that B flat. I don't like that. That's a bad sign. This is one of those Eddie Daniels ligatures that has metal inside of leather. They discontinued these. Now they call these the Versa. In my opinion, this is the worst of both worlds. So you hear that constriction. My throat is closing off. I'm using more jaw pressure. That is the amount of pressure I was using on the bonade, the good bonade. And right now it's just nothing is speaking. So I have to bite. So by biting, I'm actually closing off the reed. The opening of the reed means I'm getting less air in. I hate everything about this. It's not the worst thing I played, but it's pretty bad. This is a Lomax ligature. It has pressed woven cloth on the inside, which is pretty interesting. In general, I think that these cloth ligatures are just deadening the sound. Leather ligatures deaden the sound, and unless you're playing to a mic all the time, they're making your job harder to be heard. So that might sound really wonderful and even and dark up close, but it's amazing how small that sound is compared to some of these, how little it projects. This is an old David Height ligature. This is old nickel-plated brass. This is like what Richard Stoltzman uses, of all people. So you hear how it's bright, because the quality of the metal isn't great, but also because it's very thin. If I compare that to one of my earlier, more dense, more substantial nickel-plated brass ligatures, same design. There's a lot to love about that, and it's just higher quality, denser metal, and better structure of the metal. So one thing people do to get over this, top players today, is they'll gold plate their ligatures. This is a gold plated bonade. This is one that is similar to what Donald Montanaro used, and it works great on the mouthpiece that he had refaced. I used this ligature for many years, and it really does get a great sound. But I just got a headache. And I got a headache because you don't need something that's that dull, especially on the design that's a bonade. Yes, you are working harder, and that's good that you're using more air, but unfortunately, you're causing a lot of tension in your throat muscles, your omohyoid muscle, your SEM muscle. Your sinuses are closing off. It causes a lot of problems with your tongue, your hyoid bone, and with your soft palate. I had trouble with my soft palate. All right, this is a gold-plated BG ligature. So you hear how that one, the response is, it's a lot less covered than that gold-plated bonade. So if you're having trouble getting a sound that's a little bit too bright, these are actually really great. Do I feel that the focus is still much harder than playing some of these German silver or old nickel-plated brass ligatures, especially the early patented bonades, which are impossible to find. But there's a great focus, there's a great carry, there's a great articulation. This one I like in ways even more. This is an old gold-plated Harrison ligature. This is what the Rico X is based off of, and this is way better than the Rico X. Lots of overtones because the reed can vibrate very, very, very freely. I'll show you just a few more. This is an old Bettany ligature, very, very dense brass, silver plated, circa 1930s. Very dense, very heavy sound, and yet very easy articulation. I love that contrast. A few more. This is a kangaroo ligature, kangaroo leather. It just kills the sound. Very dead. Very dead. Just a few more. I have in here, I have a rose gold somewhere in here. This is an old nickel-plated brass. This one's great. I love this one. Very rich overtones. Sorry, give me just a second. Oh, here's a solid silver Ishimori ligature. These can be great. So I was talking about hold with that German silver bonade, just instant focus, and this totally has that. But is the articulation even like it was for the best bonade? I disagree. That D is good. E is okay. F is flat. G is good. A is very flat. B is great. C is great. Compare that to really great bonade. I'm just going to do that C scale again. doesn't get more even than that. So Ishimoris are okay. They can be really good. I think they're. It depends a lot on the metal you're using, and you've got to find a really one with really good metal. This is a Ravner I like a lot. It's very thin. The material is very thin. So a lot of these leather ligatures, there's too much material to get in the way. This one's actually good. It's a smaller sound. It doesn't carry as well, but it sounds great. I've got just a couple more. What is that? Rose gold banana. I've got a banana and rose gold. I can't find it right now. That one's interesting. I think I prefer the gold plated one. Oh, here it is. All right, last two. Rose gold banana. I got this from Cyril Mercadier in France. It has the veneer of perfection. It has the, and probably to this microphone it sounds perfect, but the sound is just so small compared to a good German silver one. And last one, this is one that my friend made for me. This is a prototype Montanaro ligature that he recreated. That's like a Ishimori, except it really works. If I compare that to the best 1970s inverted bonade, nope. It's a shame that ligature never went into mass production. So let me know in the comments which one you like best, if you were able to hear a difference in all of them, and stay tuned for a lot more videos like this.